Imagine you're stranded. No lighter, no matches, no phone. Just you, a forest, and a night that's about to drop below freezing. Now here's the insane part. The tools to save your life are already in your hands. 2 sticks, a rock, some dry grass. That's it. That's the entire fire starting kit that kept our ancestors alive for over 1,000,000 years. But here's what nobody tells you. Making fire this way isn't just rub 2 sticks together. If it were that easy, you'd already have done it in your backyard. The real method is smarter, weirder, and honestly kind of genius. And once you see how it actually works, you'll never look at a campfire the same way again. So let's go back, way back, to the moment humans figured out how to steal a piece of the sun. Here's the thing about early humans. They didn't invent fire. Fire already existed. Lightning strikes, volcanic activity, wildfires. Nature was making fire long before we showed up. What our ancestors had to invent wasn't fire itself. It was control. For a long time, that meant keeping fire alive rather than making it. Early hominins likely carried embers from natural fires, nursing them for weeks, sometimes months, because losing that flame meant going back to raw meat and freezing nights. Entire tribes probably had a designated firekeeper, someone whose entire job was making sure that ember never died. Lose it and you're back to square one. But eventually, someone figured out you didn't need to wait around for lightning. You could make your own. This is where it gets genuinely clever. The most well-known technique is called the hand drill. And yeah, it's basically spinning a stick against a piece of wood. But the details matter, and they're the difference between a fire and a very tired, very frustrated caveman. You need a spindle, a straight, dry stick, usually softwood like willow or cottonwood. Then a fireboard, a flat piece of wood with a small notch carved into it. You place the spindle into that notch and spin it between your palms, pressing down as you go. Not just spinning it, pressing, sliding your hands down the shaft as you rotate it, over and over. The friction grinds off tiny particles of wood. And here's the key part most people miss. It's not the flame you're creating first. It's dust. Fine, hot, smoking wood dust that collects at the notch. Get that dust hot enough, around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and it forms a tiny glowing coal. That coal is everything. It's not fire yet. It's an ember, fragile and small. And if you breathe on it wrong or let it sit too long, it dies. So the fire maker has to gently tip it into a nest of dry tinder, dead grass, shredded bark, cattail fluff, and then blow. Softly at first, then harder, feeding it oxygen until that tiny coal ignites the whole nest into flame. It sounds simple when you say it fast. In reality, this could take anywhere from a few minutes to nearly an hour, and it demanded serious upper body stamina, exact technique, and bone-dry materials. One damp stick and you're starting completely over. Because the hand drill was so exhausting, humans engineered around it. Enter the bow drill, one of the most underrated inventions in human history. Instead of spinning the spindle with your palms, you wrap a cord around it, attach that cord to a curved bow, and saw the bow back and forth. That motion spins the spindle far faster and with way less effort than your hands ever could. On top of the spindle, you'd press down with a handhold, sometimes made of stone or bone, to keep steady pressure without wearing out your palms. This wasn't a lucky discovery. It was mechanical thinking. Cavemen had essentially built a hand-powered drill thousands of years before anyone had a word for engineering. And it worked so well that some indigenous cultures still use bow drills today, not as a novelty, but because they genuinely work. Friction wasn't the only trick up their sleeve. There's a second method that's arguably even more insane when you think about it. Percussion fire starting, using flint and pyrites, or later, flint and steel. Strike the right kind of rock against another at just the right angle, and you shear off tiny metal or mineral particles. Those particles get hot enough from the impact that they ignite, literally sparks flying off the stone. Catch that spark in a nest of tinder fungus or dry material, and boom, you've got fire again. This method needed the right rocks, which meant it wasn't available everywhere. But where it was faster and more reliable than friction, which is part of why flint became one of the most traded, most valuable materials in the ancient world. People weren't just trading flint for tools, they were trading it for warmth, for cooking, for survival itself. Here's the bigger picture. Fire wasn't just about staying warm. It changed the entire trajectory of the human species. Cooking food made it easier to digest, which meant more energy for our brains to grow. Fire kept predators away at night. It let humans migrate into colder climates they never could have survived in otherwise. Some anthropologists argue that without controlled fire, human evolution as we know it simply doesn't happen. And all of that, the brain growth, the migration, the survival, traces back to someone thousands of years ago figuring out that if you spin a stick fast enough against another piece of wood, you can create something from almost nothing. So the next time you flick a lighter without a second thought, remember, that tiny flame represents one of the most important discoveries our species ever made. And weirdly enough, in a real survival situation, that ancient method might still be your best shot. If you want to see what happens when modern humans actually try this from scratch, with 0 matches, 0 lighters, 0 shortcuts, let me know in the comments, because that might be exactly what we test next.